The form of conscious activity depicted in the opening scene, Alexei turning on the TV, is of remembrance. Remembrance is done within the present, but transports us to the past. This here, Maria sitting on the fence, is the form of conscious activity in the present moment. It's thinking. Moments of introspection, of slightly heightened consciousness, a keen awareness of the passing of every second. Mirror forces you to be aware of these most important moments in our self-development. They are especially felt in moments of waiting. Tarkovsky, in defiance of Hitchcock's maxim, "What is drama but life with the dull bits cut out," resolves to find what is necessary, important, and compelling in those dull bits of life, usually associated with waiting. Note that we hear several different sounds at once.
Дорога от станции шла через Игнатьево, поворачивала в сторону, следуя изгибу Вороны.
Birds chirping, a train, Edward Artemyev's score for the film, and then a final form of sound, the spoken word. Here are the many different categories of a human life. The poetry is written by the person Maria is waiting for. So if Maria is our conscious activity, then we wait for a poet. We wait for inspiration, as well as reunion, which is restoration. All of the poems in Mirror are by Arseny Tarkovsky, Andrei Tarkovsky's father. When we wait, we look to the future and realize how powerless we are before it. Maria waits for her lover, but Alexei, the boy whom Mirror is about, waits for his father. For both, the return of the father-husband is what means most in this world. It is life and the psyche itself repaired. It's a reunion with the beloved, the ultimate goal of Dante's Divine Comedy, which is itself a sophisticated picture of a journey through the psyche. So many other great works of art have this theme, from Johannes Vermeer's Girl Reading a Letter at an Open Window to Bessie Smith's Baby Won't You Please Come Home. Mirror is a film about wartime, but existentially, we are always at war. The question is whether we are winning or not, and the battle is against ourselves, in the lasting struggle of being and becoming. The return of these much-needed parts of a mature and developed psyche is a theme in Mirror, to become whole again through memory, which is a form of spiritual outreach. Those who die, we can yet visit again through our memory, just as we recall their recent physical visits into our lives during the time of their lives. The form of a memory is the same, whether they are alive or dead. It is only conditioned by the fickle moment called the present, but the data and its arrangement remain. St. Augustine, in De Musica Book 6, writes, "I think differently about my father whom I have seen, and about my grandfather whom I have never seen. My thought of my father comes from memory, but my thought of my grandfather comes from mental movements arising out of other mental movements, which are contained in memory. Whatever I make out of anything which I have seen, I make by means of memory." We wait for both a husband and a father, but Alexei is not present. Only Maria is now. Perhaps the Alexei that is present is the man behind the camera. Mirror is autobiographical, but it is not a biography. It's more like a philosophical memoir. The subject behind the camera is in direct interaction with the Alexei that is on film, not just as a director. He once directed the same body that Alexei represents. The long, confusing war footage later in the film serves to clarify the film's relationship to reality. It does mean to be a recreation of real memories and real dreams, and to ask, what is that recreation? What do you mean a real dream, a real memory, as opposed to the recreation on film and to reality itself? The distinctions between them are illusory. The director himself is waiting for his father again and again each time the film Mirror is watched. Out of this waiting emerges not the father, but a stranger. The fence, especially in this shot with the house situated behind it, could also be the confines of the psyche, with the house being the psyche itself. Surprise, we are in a dream right now, but we don't know it yet as viewers of the film. This allows us to interpret things doubly, as both dream and as memory. Either way, we are in Alexei's brain right now. We are in a dream, therefore the unconscious is in control, and we are exploring the psyche itself. So the house might be the whole faculty and store of memory situated in the psyche. This is the place we return to the most in the film, as a memory. Alexei's grandfather's house, where he lived with his mother and some siblings, waiting for his father to return from the war. Alexei's father also has memories of the war before this war. In this scene, Maria, a woman, meets and falls with a man. This fall synchronizes them. She jumps up immediately immediately, unhappy with that synchronicity because they are strangers, but the fact is they have just been through something together. Now the stranger is a memory. We must each strengthen ourselves by incorporating the missing feminine or masculine aspect into our lives. Carl Jung, in Conscious, Unconscious, and Individuation, writes, "In the unconscious of every man there is hidden a feminine personality, and in that of every woman a masculine personality. It is a well-known fact that sex is determined by a majority of male or female genes, as the case may be. But the minority of genes belonging to the other sex does not simply disappear. A man therefore has in him a feminine side, an unconscious feminine figure, a fact of which he is generally quite unaware. I may take it as known that I have called this figure the anima, and its counterpart in a woman the animus. This figure frequently appears in dreams." Often, we find this lack fulfilled in our partners, if we really have a connection with them.
Тебе кого больше хочется, мальчика или девочку?
Tarkovsky does not necessarily mean to represent these images as precise parts of the brain per se, but Mirror is a mental film. It occurs inside the mind of a dying man. Tarkovsky was an avid reader of Dostoevsky. In Dostoevsky's novels, characters represent the fullest expression of human ideas in interaction with one another. You could easily say that in Demons, or the Brothers Karamazov, it is the unnamed town in which everything takes place that represents the psyche. Tarkovsky's cinema expands on that model. Cinema is an art uniquely positioned to illustrate the psyche itself at work within itself, because as the camera moves in film, we can actively see the artist at work. Look, the camera turns. It was Georgy Rurberg who turned it, and Tarkovsky who instructed him. The great Margarita Terekova speaks. Look, an artist is at work. We see a painting, and it is a finished work. Usually, we hear a recording of music. Film is a recording as well, but it records itself, documenting its own recording. There is living movement. In Kant's words, we can see the free play of the imagination, the mind of the genius at work. Approximately, at least, of all the arts, Kant held poetry to be the highest form, but Kant did not live to see the age of film. Switching to Tarkovsky's language, not an exact quote, cinema is the making of poetry sculpted out of time. Cinematography is much like the painter's art. It is perspective. Everywhere the camera goes, an artist and his easel is following. Cinema is clearly a visual art, but it enlists music and drama as most powerful allies. It's the dream team. Cinema is captured time that can be relived just as memory. The stranger, played by Anatoly Solonitsyn, may represent several things. The first being a thought. In the struggle to create, when the promising notion of an idea arrives in the mind, it is often met by a negative counterpart, an element of resistance, a turning inside out of the notion, a contradiction. Maria sits and thinks, and along comes this man, a walking contradiction. He is an intrusive thought. He barges his way in. He turns from the path, as only Maria's husband would know to do, but he is not her husband. He even says to her that she has no husband, but she does. He also says he's a doctor, but he asks for a cigarette. He reveals to Maria how restless she is for her husband by not being him, but he also is the possibility of leaving her husband, as she does later in the film. She does not wear her wedding ring, a circle and a symbol of requited love. The psyche's linear assumptions, the fence, limit our access to eternal functions, like romantic love. Solonitsyn played Andrei Rublev in Tarkovsky's masterpiece of the same name, and for that reason, the stranger could represent the activated creative spirit. The opening of Mirror is the entrance of the creative spirit in the ability to speak. The stranger, because he breaks the fence, also represents the subject's first substantial encounter with the other. Confines of the psyche, done. There are no confines. There never were. The stranger holds within him all of the possibilities of the other. He flirts with Maria, a woman sitting alone, so he could be dangerous. But he also laughs and jokes. He may be benign or even benevolent. He's lost. He strayed from his path, like a thought that one notices, but he also is on the right path. He doesn't seem lost at all. He is a free spirit. He also seems slightly insane, but maybe he's just eccentric. And he is bewitched by nature, by the spirit that carries him, just like the wind here. The breaking of the fence is also a break with all conventions of linear time. It's like linearity itself is dismissed with this break, laughed at as a joke. More so, the falling to earth of both man and woman at once represents our own journey. This is a universal message to both men and women, despite the subject being a boy and a man. The film will end with Maria and Alexei's father in this same meadow. It is the platonic form of a meadow. It is the archetype of a lover's getaway, the meadow of fresh grass, the place you go to be alone with a lover. And this place is possibly where Alexei himself is conceived, the very beginning. The film circles back to this same meadow, but now Maria is reunited with her lover, even though this event at the end of the film is in the past of the present event in the film. The stranger himself even seems to speak against that attitude of life. Given partial voice in the maxim of Hitchcock, we fail to appreciate moments of quiet and introspection, especially today, as every meaningful video ever repeats. Not just meditating, but intentionally contemplating. It's because the stranger speaks this way that I say he represents a thought, but he also doesn't need to represent anything. But since we are in the dream world, and the unconscious directs without direction, it's as though a wandering ghost that is a pale imitation of ourselves is at work in dream. We do things in dream, after all, and occasionally it even seems like the dream world is under our control, but the substance of the dream world comes from the unconscious. Therefore, in the dream world, we're sort of like this stranger. We're lost, but not lost, because we're in a place that is our own. He says, I brought all the tools, but I forgot the key. Obviously, that's what he's looking for, just like us. She is waiting for her husband, he is searching for his key. This is the work that must be done. Just briefly, appreciate the brilliance of Margarita Terrakova in this gesture against the evening summer's glow, in these subtle motions of her eyes and her bored lips, how she brushes herself off. You can see in her face what she thinks of this stranger. You're annoying, but I guess you're not dangerous, but you're not my husband, and I miss my husband dearly, and I need that man to be here, not this man. I can see all of that in her face. Bergman said that the face was the most complex landscape that could be filmed, and I think that's correct. The collapse of the fence demands from time, that fundamental category, what is cinema's birthright. Of all the arts, it is cinema that is master over time. As Tarkovsky writes in his Sculpting in Time, if one compares cinema with such time-based arts as, say, ballet or music, cinema stands out as giving time visible, real form. Time becomes the very foundation of cinema, as sound is in music, color in painting, character in drama. Now here is one of the great universal memories of mirror, something that we are all supposed to recognize.
Никуда не бегают. Это мы все бегаем, суетимся, все пошлости говорим.
We hear this several times throughout the film. The dog's barking is the call to adventure, because why are the dogs barking? You're the last one up in the household, it's morning, you're still in bed, and outside you hear dogs barking. This means it's time to get out of bed and go outside and see what they are barking about.